Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 photos that will make you cry. So I already made part 1 of this, but that was like a year ago, and these photos are even more sad. And I hope you guys don't get too sad about these photos, but comment if they did make you cry. And I am working on the face cam intros, but I'm just setting up a background and getting equipment, so that'll definitely be coming soon. And definitely drop a like if you enjoy. Let's aim for 6,000 likes on this video because it really does help me out. So coming in at number 10, we have Shi'ite Cut. So in this one, a group of Shiite Muslims are celebrating a Shiite Muslim holiday, Ashura, and the whole point of this holiday is to show respect to the dead, and basically they do a ton of rituals to show the respect. But these rituals are really weird and painful because it's mainly self-mutilation, which is basically like an extreme version of self-harm. And they do things like cutting off bits of their body, stabbing themselves, whipping themselves with metal chains, and they also cut their heads with big swords. But one really controversial thing that some dads do is cut their own baby's head, just like in this photo right here. And what's crazy about this is that the dad is holding the baby while somebody else does the cutting. Like, some people don't even trust other people to babysit their kids, let alone cut their heads with giant swords. But the reason I had to put this photo on is because of how sad this baby looks. And this photo went viral because of how sad it is, and the baby was kind of forced into it. I mean, fair enough if you want to do it to yourself, but it's not like the baby can just be like, hey, whoa, stop. And yeah, they basically don't have much of a say, and this photo made a ton of hate for Shiite Muslims. And I'm not trying to disrespect anyone's religion, but this is a crazy photo. And also, this religious festival is optional, and I don't know how much of you guys like whipping yourself half to death, but it doesn't sound like too much fun to me, so I think if I was a Shiite Muslim, I'd miss this one out. So next up, we have gun or camera. So I'm sure most of you know about the war in Syria right now, and basically a lot of places where just regular people are living are getting bombed because terrorists live there. And this has a big effect on all of the people who live there, especially the kids. So in 2015, this journalist came to Syria to report on the struggles that the people who live there have, and while the journalist was there, she was walking around a camp which had been set up in a deserted area of Syria where there's no bombs, and then she saw a little girl and decided to take her photo. But as she put her camera up to the girl put her hands up because she thought the journalist's camera was a gun. And the reason she did this is because she's basically used to seeing guns kill people every day where she used to live, and she just assumes that a big black thing is a gun, which is really sad. And the expression on her face is just so sad too. I mean, she looks like she's gonna cry. And I guess it just shows that kids in Syria or any other country that has a war zone in it can be permanently scarred by what happens there. And I don't even want to know what she's seen to make her have that reaction to a camera, but I'm sure it's not nice. So coming up next, we have dream hair. So you guys all know cancer affects a ton of people, and apparently around 50% of people will get cancer at some point in their life, which I think is absolutely insane. But anyway, when you think of cancer patients, you probably think of mainly old people, but the second most likely people to get cancer are really young kids. And obviously cancer has a lot of really bad consequences like weakness, feeling really ill, and sometimes even death. But another consequence, which you could say is less serious, is a loss of hair. But think about it, it must be really strange and scary losing your hair at such a young age. And the girl in this photo is a good example of this because she lost all of her hair to chemotherapy because she had leukemia, which is a type of cancer. So to try and make her feel better, the hospital staff let her draw her dream hair on the mirror in her room, and even though it's not as good as real hair, it was a really nice thing of the hospital to do, and who knows, maybe this will give her some hope for a more normal future. And even though you could say this photo isn't sad because the girl seems kind of happy in it, you can't say it's not a very powerful photo, and it basically just reminds you that even if you have cancer and you don't die from it, it can still affect you really badly. So next up, we have memory saver. So this is another photo which isn't exactly sad, in fact it's kind of nice, but it is really moving and powerful. So this American couple used to go to this diner called Max for breakfast every day ever since they retired, which was in the 1970s. But then all of a sudden the husband got really ill and had to go to hospital, and then one day the husband sadly died and the wife was all alone. But that didn't stop the wife from keeping up the tradition of going to the diner every day for breakfast to basically keep the memory of her husband alive. So yeah, it's kind of a way for her to remember him. But she doesn't go totally alone. She actually brings along a photo of her husband, which I think is really nice. And one day a photographer saw her doing this and took this photo and also talked to her to get her story. And because she goes there every day and because she goes there every single day and she's been going for so long, she actually gets free food at the diner. I mean, since the 1970s every day, that diner must have made millions from her. Now, but seriously, that was a really nice thing of this diner to do, and this photo made me feel kind of sad, but at the same time kind of happy. So coming up next we have earthquake photos. So this one is coming from Japan, and in 2011 Japan was hit with a really bad earthquake and it destroyed tons of lives because people lost their houses, their workplaces, and in some cases even their families. Just like this guy in this really sad photo, and he was actually out of the area when the earthquake hit, but when he came back he found his house that him and his family had lived in for over 20 years totally destroyed. And if you thought that was bad, it gets even worse. His family, which was his wife and 2 kids, were actually inside the house when it collapsed, and unfortunately they all died because of the bricks and stuff that made up the house fell on them and crushed them to death. I mean, it's bad enough when adults die, but I mean there were really young kids in this family. But anyway, when he got to the house, their bodies had been taken away and all that was left of the house was an old photo album, and he was seen looking through this and I guess just thinking about his dead family. And obviously what this guy has been through is absolutely terrible, but I'm just glad he at least has photos to remember his family with, because everything else is totally destroyed, even though it's obviously not as good as the real thing. So next up we have kidney for wife. Okay, so the last one was really sad, and this photo does have kind of a sad story, but it's more of a powerful photo than a sad one like before. So in 2014, this guy called Larry Swillings had a wife called Sue who he'd been with for like 40 years. But one day she ended up getting diagnosed with a really bad kidney disease, and this kidney disease was so serious and the doctors said she would eventually die from it. But Larry couldn't give her his because he only had one from a past operation, and they didn't have money to buy another one from the hospital, and they couldn't find a donor. And Sue was just about to give up because she was really sad, but Larry didn't want to live without her, so he decided to do something which was a little bit far-fetched and probably wouldn't work, but he loved his wife so much so he tried it anyway, and he basically attached a sign to himself that said kidney for wife and then his phone number, and then he walked up long highways hoping cars would see him and somebody could help, and he did this every day for like 2 weeks, but still no one from the cars who saw him called his number. And there you have it, guys. Nah, I'm just kidding, of course there's more. This photo went viral and attracted tons of media attention because people were so moved about what Larry was doing, and in fact people were so moved he got over 200 offers from different people in a load of different countries, basically saying they would donate their kidneys, but only one of them was a match. But that was all they needed, so an ex-Navy lieutenant named Kelly gave Sue one of her kidneys, and Larry now says he has 2 missions: to repay Kelly and to find donors for other people. So next up we have Migrant Boy. So I'm sure all of you guys have heard about the war in Syria. Yeah, Charlie, you talked about it in the second photo, you dumbass. Okay, well, this is another really sad photo, but it's not in Syria. It's actually a boy who was a Syrian refugee, and his home was destroyed in Syria, so his parents had to either leave Syria or die. But sadly, he drowned on a boat when he was trying to get to a safer country, and I'm sure you guys remember when this photo was taken, because it was in every single newspaper, news show, and a ton of other media, because it was so sad and crazy, because this kid was like 2 years old. And this photo actually made some politicians in some countries let some of these people in because of how much attention this photo got, which I mean it is a good thing that they did this and stopped more people from dying, but does it really take a kid to literally die for people to take action? I don't know, guys, I just think this is such a sad photo, and it just goes to show what effect war has on people and the stuff they have to do to get away from it. So coming up next we have Lonely Birthday. So most birthdays look something like this, but for this German soldier, well, it wasn't like that at all. He was in Afghanistan on his birthday and he spent the day seeing terrible violence and even almost getting blown up himself, and at the end of the day he sat down all alone with a tiny little cake to celebrate his birthday. And the reason he was alone was because earlier that day someone who he was stationed with had died, and he basically just wanted to be respectful because he thought the other soldiers should just pay attention to the dead guy and basically keep him in their prayers, and he didn't want to take all the attention away from the dead soldier. And I mean, I don't disagree with him, but this was a really nice and courageous thing for him to do, and you guys can see by this guy's not so great cake and his sad face that this isn't a good birthday for him. But I mean, you have to give this guy credit for being such a respectful soldier. So coming up next we have Sacrificial Runner. So this one is another big act of courage and kindness, and if you guys need some inspiration but don't want some weak cat photo, well, this photo is really inspirational. So this school in Ohio in America was having a running tournament, and they had this every year, and it's a really big deal to all of the students, and this really good runner called Megan Vohair had been training all year for this, and she really wanted to win. And when the race began, Megan was really far in the lead, and she was so far she was almost guaranteed to win.
So what's the issue? This doesn't sound that sad.
Well, hang on a minute, because another runner who was actually Megan's arch rival named Arden McMath was also running, and she was in second place. But then all of a sudden Arden falls over on the track, and everyone else was like, oh great, I can get ahead. But not Megan. She stopped even though she was in first place, and she went to help Arden finish the race, and it actually did mean that Megan came joint last with Arden, even though Megan was probably gonna win. But people were so surprised and happy about how kind she was that it made national news and even ESPN. And now professional running teams are talking with Megan about her going pro. So this basically just goes to show that being nice can pay off. And coming up last on this list we have Mourning Mourning Dog. And we're finishing off on kind of a sad one, especially if you guys like dogs, and I know a ton of you guys do. So in 2014, a soldier who had been fighting in Afghanistan was shot and killed, and at his funeral a ton of army members came and a ton of his family came, and they were obviously really sad. But someone else who was also really close to the soldier was his dog, and his dog had been with him for 4 years in Afghanistan, and he just laid there right in front of his coffin for hours. And even though this is a dog, you can still see they had a huge connection, and today the dog is still taken to visit the soldier's grave quite a lot, and it can literally just lay there for hours. And I mean, this is really sad, but it also goes to show how close some humans and animals can get. And that just about wraps up this video. Check out the poll in the top right corner and you guys can vote for the saddest photo. For me, I think it's gun or camera, just because that girl seems so scared. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe.